Bismillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Wassalatu Wassalam ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a sunnatahu ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic discussion show, Guest of the Week. I'm your host, Ismail Bullock, coming to you as always from Sharjah TV in the United Arab Emirates. And today, inshallah, we want to have a very important discussion and an important topic, which is something that we should all have. And if we don't have it, we really need to work on it. And we're going to talk about the tips to get this, or signs that you can see in yourself that you are attaining this. And this is love for the Prophet Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu, Alaihi, Wassallam. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him. And to do this with me is no stranger to the show, Brother Almir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair for coming on again.
Jazakallah khair for inviting me.
I mean, as I'm sure we're going to touch upon today, but we know that the signs of being a true believer is having love for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, loving him more than our own selves, parents, etc., which I'm sure we're going to touch upon. So we want to discuss, I guess, signs that are a bit of an indication for us whether or not we truly love the Messenger of Allah, and if not, at least we know these are the kind of signs that we should be having. That would be a demonstration or an indication that we do actually truly love the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Before we even go into the signs, let's see, because we're supposed to, we have to, not supposed to, we should and we have to love Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam more than we love ourselves, as was indicated in the hadith when he was talking to Umar and radiallahu anhu and so on. But let's see, since we love Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we have to, and we have to work on it, and we'll see the signs, of course, we'll mention it. Let's see what did the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do for us? That he loved us. So let's go reverse and see how he felt about us, meaning that his ummah. And I mean by that, even the ones who he never met, such as us, right? So, and he says, and this is the famous hadith that we know, that Aisha radiallahu anha narrated. She said, once when I saw the Prophet ﷺ being cheerful, I said to him, this hadith is graded Hasan. Once when I saw the Prophet ﷺ being cheerful, I said to him, O Messenger of Allah, supplicate to Allah for me. Yani make dua to Allah for me. He said, O Allah, forgive Aisha for her past and future sins, since what she has concealed as well as that was made apparent, or what she has made apparent. So I began smiling to the point that my head fell into the lap of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to me, does my dua, my supplication make you happy, O Aisha? She said, of course it does. How can your dua not make me happy? Subhanallah. Then he said, this is the famous statement the Prophet ﷺ said, by Allah, it is the supplication that I make for my ummah in every prayer. By Allah, this is that I make the supplication for my ummah in every prayer. So that means for every one of us, each and every of our viewers, each and every of us ourselves, all the Prophet Muhammad's ummah, all the people who testify that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and that we testify that Muhammad is his slave and messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then Rasulullah making dua for us. At that time when he was alive, but he was making dua for the past and the future, for the sins of Aisha and that whatever was apparent, but also making dua for the ummah that was at that time and those who were going to come. Until when? Until the Yawm al-Qiyamah, until the Day of Judgment. So if Rasulullah professed his love in a way for us in this way, then what are we supposed to do about this? And he sacrificed 23 years of his life. He constantly prayed for us. Even when he was dying, he used to say, Ummati, Ummati. And he was worried about us. He was worried about us, what's going to happen to us. He was not worried about himself as much because he did his best. Even when the Sahaba used to ask him, O Prophet of Allah, you are the chosen one. You are the one that Allah chose among all the people. You're the best of the creation, right? Yet you make istighfar. Allah forgave you and you already entered Jannah. That's it. That's it for you. And you still make istighfar. Some narrations say 70 times a day, some say more than that. But regardless, he made istighfar every day. And he said in response, how can I not be a grateful servant to the one who created me? So even though he's forgiven and everything, and he knew that, but still he was making istighfar, he was still repenting and making whatever he was asking Allah, right? But he knew that he was worried about us. He was worried about his ummah, so he used to make dua for us, and he used to be very worried about us, subhanAllah. So now, what do we need to do? I'm going to touch upon about 7 of these signs of that will give us an idea that we are that we can claim, that put a little bit of a claim to say, do we love Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Are we emulating him? Are we following him? So first of the signs is, what do you need to do? Is basically you need to imitate and emulate him in his ways. Whatever he did, whatever he has said, whatever he has told us to do, we have to follow him to that point.
And if you think about it as well, if you look up to somebody and if you love somebody, you will imitate them and you will emulate them and you will try to be like them. And that's why we see so many people who have this high respect for movie stars or footballers or personalities, that they try to imitate them and they know a lot about them and they always check the latest information, and sometimes they even know their school child history and how they became a footballer and when they got chosen and when they first signed with this team and all this information. But unfortunately, many of the times for the Muslims, we don't know even, I would say, bullet-pointed main events in the life of the Prophet ﷺ.
We'll get to that. This is one of our points. But the first point is to realize, what does it mean to imitate Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Nowadays, and I'm guilty of that myself, I do love sports. I play different sports, and I know about sports stars, sports players, and so on. So I know some of the statistics and so on. So we're all guilty of that. And nowadays, people, in a sense, it's one thing to know about those certain stars and whatever the goal scoring rate is or whatever, those soccer players, right? But it's another way to act like them. Okay, you want to be a good player as good as they are, that's fine. But to do even things that are not permissible that they're doing, to imitate that's not allowed. So some people go to that extent, that even small things like haircuts, the way they're shaving part of the head, for example, which is not allowed in Islam, or it's disliked, right? Or doing these tattoos and all of these things, these things are disliked, not allowed. So people emulate even that. So now we have to know, how do we need to know when we are emulating and imitating Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? So one of the greatest calamities, for example, is when a believer, for example, I want to say when he goes to spiritual change and then he tries to imitate the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then he chooses to imitate one part and leave the other. So we need to go in a balanced manner in imitating the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in all things, all aspects, right? There's so many examples I could mention, but just generally speaking, thus, if we wish to imitate Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then we need to exemplify his manners alongside all of the fiqh issues. And sometimes we see this. We see a person doing everything in fiqh correctly, but yet his manners or her manners are not appropriate.
I was going to say that's a problem we often have, where the person, like you said, could be very practicing, but he has bad manners. This is definitely a big deficiency in the person's practicing of the religion, because we know that after believing on the prayers, etc., the Prophet ﷺ said that the heaviest thing on the scales on the Day of Judgment is good character, and that the closest will be to him on the Day of Judgment are the ones with a good character. And it goes on and on and on.
So, you may have somebody who's, of course, we all need to pray our compulsory prayers, but then you have all the nawafil prayers, right? And this person, mashallah, he or she is praying all the nawafil prayers, all the nawafil, you could say voluntary fasts, he or she does. Yet, but when that person interacts with his co-workers, with his people, with his family, there's something lacking, and then you see even his looks, he's practicing Muslim and all this, but then the way he talks or she talks in this interaction, it's, how can I say, repulsive in a way. You yourself or anybody that sees those people are like, man, that's just wrong. And this is the way that we need to work on ourselves. So if you accept, if you put in your life practice of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we need to encompass everything together. So one of the questions that one can ask as an action item to see for the sign is, are my decisions reflective of a believer who imitates and emulates the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What do my manners reflect? Do they reflect that? Do they reflect something else? How do I treat my parents? How does a husband treat his wife, or wife treats her husband, children, community members, my superiors and employees, Muslims and non-Muslims alike? Because we need to give everybody their right, because they have right upon us when we're dealing with them. So this is, so basically this point is to imitate the Prophet ﷺ in all aspects. And we know the famous thing of Prophet ﷺ, that sometimes he was not even talking, but people accepting Islam. Because the way he was walking, the way he was just behaving on the street, for example.
That reminds me of when Indonesia, which is the biggest populated Muslim country in the world, Islam entered there by Arab Muslim merchants who went to trade there, and they were affected by the honesty of the merchants. Because unfortunately, in many places, especially I imagine back in those days where they didn't have so many rules and regulations to govern these things, merchants would often hide the defects of their product or oversell their product and exaggerate and be untrue in describing their product. Whereas the Muslims will come and say, I have this here, but however, there is a slight crack here. And they would be shocked and they said, why are you telling me this? This is haram, this is forbidden for me to sell you something that I know has a defect and I don't tell you about it. Or for example, so a lot of them, and that's genuinely how Islam, there was no there was no campaign or anything like that. It was literally from the characteristics that the Muslims were showing good characteristics.
And one of the calamities of this modern world is the false advertisement that we always see. Like, sometimes you see a picture of this product that you're buying. Literally, like my wife, we just bought something for the girls. It was like this to make some kind of for shower, some kind of a shampoo or something. It was a picture on this website, and we bought it and we got it home. It's like my wife was like, "Man, that's small," but the way they take the picture, the item looks really big. Meanwhile, when you get it, it's like very small. I mean, it will do the job, but it's just one of those things. Like, you should tell you, like, it's. So in a way, like you said, that the people of Arab Muslim merchants that did this, subhanallah, imagine this. This is very important to act like this. And the second point, the second sign that you just mentioned, is basically that seerah, knowing seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is a very important aspect, because like we mentioned earlier, we know these superstar players, soccer players, basketball players, whatever they may be, cricket players. We know their history, we know their favorite foods, we know everything. But do we know about Prophet ﷺ and his life? How he was, what happened to him? All those years that he, even before Islam, before he was given the prophethood, what happened and so on. So every Muslim, and this is, in my opinion, they have to study. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but they have to study seerah to the extent, how can I say, to the best of their abilities. Whatever they're able to.
Just part of the Shahada, we say as Muslims, testifying that there is no true God worthy of worship except Allah, and that the Prophet Muhammad is messenger. It's just not something we are supposed to just say by tongue. We're supposed to know who he is and believe in him and believe in everything that he sent. And we should have that basic knowledge. This is kind of obligatory knowledge that we have to have. We have to have basic knowledge of belief in Allah and what goes against or negates that belief. And we have to know the basics on the life of the Prophet ﷺ, who he was. And on that point there, we'll just go for a quick break, inshallah. Join us, inshallah, after this quick break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, Brother Almir, just before the break, we'd started touching upon the importance of studying the seerah, the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And just before the break, I mentioned that this is something that is obligatory for us to know the essential things about the Prophet ﷺ.
It will, subhanallah, this is just not wasira, but if you get to intimately know somebody, like your friend, for example, you will have more love for that person, right? You'll have more empathy. You will have more feeling and more understanding of what that friend has went through or went through. Same thing with Prophet ﷺ. Studying what he went through with all the hardships that he had, with all the trials and tribulations that would happen, especially in the 13 years in Mecca. And don't forget this, just because they migrated to Medina that the hardship stopped. No, there was different types of hardships. And then went through until literally until he passed away. And subhanallah, all of those things, you read about it and creates certain love in you because you feel for Prophet ﷺ when he has gone through. You are getting to know him on a different level. Not only from the hadith that you hear, but you see him in all aspects of life. From his life as a family man, from his aspects as a community leader, you could say, because he was a community leader in the beginning. Later on as a leader of the Muslim society in Medina and so on. And also even as a general, war general, right? Well, all those things and how he dealt with everybody along the way and how he reacted to those who were cussing him, cursing him, who were attacking him physically, he creates certain love for you, subhanallah. And this is what happens when you do that. So how can we do this? How can we get to know Prophet ﷺ better? There's so many books out there. One of the famous ones is the Seal Nectar, Rahiqul Makhtoum. And I read that book myself long time ago, and that was like a turning point for me. When I was like 17 years old or so, 18 years old, that's when I read it first. And it was like a turning point for me. I read it and I read it again. And I wanted to be like him. It just created that, that love because you understood what he was going through. But there are many other books out there. This is not the only one. Nowadays, in the time of so many social media outlets, you can have in-depth videos, you can have podcasts, different types of things, lectures, you can have audio, video, whatever you like. Interactive as well. There's so many sources of this. There's even extended seerah series that you can listen to, hundreds of lectures, right? Out there, you have books, of course, we have books from before, and there's so many other books, not only the one I mentioned. And so how can you do this? SubhanAllah. One of the tips you can do on your own, you can do with your family. Learn to love Prophet ﷺ as a family because you can do it together. And you can do it on a basic level, then advanced level. You can do it on your own, and you can listen to some durus. Maybe some of the things you may not understand what happened in Seerah, why it happened like this, why did the Prophet make a decision, Sallallahu at this point about that, especially like, for example, about Hudaybiyah and all this. This is, I believe, was it sixth year of Hijri, I believe, or something like that. Anyway, some of those things that it may not make sense, then you can have some explanation and go along the way. And this will create love for you, for the Prophet ﷺ. And this is, like I said, the action point is to study, learn, read. I know now our attention span nowadays, we used to listen to lectures that are 1 hour long, 2 hours long, no problem. Nowadays, the attention span is 5 minutes.
I mean, at the very least, you can buy yourself, like you said, because there's so many publications out there now. As long as it's from an authentic
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
publishers, you can find some summarized books of the Prophet ﷺ that will give you the essential things you must know and the essential events or parts of his life, probably in 15, 20 pages.
Yes.
For those who don't,
exactly.
Who feel like.
Or if you read every day 5-10 minutes, just to get yourself started, because some of us, you look at the book and you're like, oh my God, I have to read it for 3 hours. I cannot focus for that 3 hours, right? It's okay. Read a little bit. So basically start somewhere, right? So we need to start somewhere, and getting to know the Prophet ﷺ is our path to loving him, is our way to loving him. What else do we, one of the third tip that we can do is studying what he conveyed, right? Studying what he conveyed, or going through things that he told us about. Nowadays we have some of the people that are denying this, the people who deny the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, who go into that. But we are not one of those. we confirm and affirm all the hadith that he mentioned, and of course authentic. So if we study what he was sent with, and what is one of those things that he studied that he commented? It's the Quran, of course. So of course we have the Quran and Sunnah, but he came with the Quran. He was the one who Quran was revealed to by Malak Jibreel, Angel Jibreel. So we need to study Quran. And especially looking at the Quran from an aspect of combining it with seerah, because you will see some of the ayah that were revealed at a certain point of time, why it was revealed like this, and why it was revealed in such a manner, and how it was compiled and all this. This will also see that, even at the time of Prophet ﷺ in Medina, there were instances that, there was time in between revelation that actually the Sahaba and everybody was waiting for Allah to decide something for them. And they were waiting, and there was some, you could say that you could see the struggle that they went through. They had to be patient and wait for Allah's decree and so on. So how can we do this about Quran? Of course, learn how to read it if you don't know how, and then recite it every day in small quantities. One of the scholars used to say, especially for non-Arabic speakers, he says that instead of focusing on reading one juz, two juz in Arabic without translation, instead read 1 or 2 pages a day, but then make sure you read the translation in your language. Make sure you understand what you're reading. And if you have some also tafsir of it available for you, also listen to that, because this will, not only what you read that you get benefit out of, but you also get a spiritual benefit because you will understand what you've read. And this is very important for our English speakers who don't speak Arabic to focus on this. It's really important.
Another important issue that relates to the non-Arab speakers is sometimes people feel that they have some difficulty in the reciting the Quran. It puts them off. But there's the hadith the Prophet ﷺ said that the one who gets the reward is not the mahar, the one who's skillful in the Quran. He said it's the one yatata'ta, means he stutters when he reads. He tries to read and he keeps making mistakes, but he continues. He said he's the one who gets double the reward. So he gets the greater reward.
And for every alif and lam and mim?
That's generally speaking. But on top of that...
On top of that, yes.
So every letter you say, every letter that you say...
It's a hasana.
Is a hasana. And we know that the hasana is 10 times rewarded as a general principle. As Allah says in the Quran, that the hasana is 10 times multiplied. And then on top of that, they have the double the reward because of the fact that they have some struggle,
of course,
or stuttering with the recitation. So you could be reading a page, and we probably could even count
how many.
A
person who is struggling to read a page may get more reward than the one who reads 100 or 50 pages, for sure. Yes. So if you're struggling, don't give up, but don't put yourself too much stress. Do what you can, and then make sure, like I said, always to get the meaning of it. So that's the third. The fourth is, of course, sending salutations upon him. Whenever you hear his name, say Sallallahu, Alaihi, Wassallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammed, and so on.
We know that, we know, as the Imam always tells us, every Friday, the Imam always tells us to...
This is what I was going to mention.
SubhanAllah, to recite, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever, sends salutations over me, will...
Allah will send 10 salutations in return for this person who made it for Prophet ﷺ.
And we know it also in the adhkar, in the supplications, the du'as we make him every morning and every evening, is we should say 10 times, again, send peace and blessings upon the Prophet ﷺ.
Yes.
In the mornings and the evenings.
And also another narration, we know that by making salawat and salam Rasulullah ﷺ, sending peace and blessings upon him, and doing this all the time, will get you closer to him on Judgment Day, right? And also intercession by him will be done for you on the Day of Judgment, And this is important fact because this is one of the ways we get closer to Prophet ﷺ. It's very important. Some of the scholars, they say that when you, in one gathering, if you hear his name, you say once Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this covers for the whole gathering, right? Some of them, they say every time you hear it, you should say it. Make it a habit, say it as much as you can. Whenever you hear it, if it's an appropriate setting, right? If you are not disturbing anybody or something like this. So make sure you always mention when his name is mentioned to do this. So the action item is, so try to, like you said, you mentioned, to send 10 prayers in the morning and the evening. SubhanAllah, you just mentioned the point, so that you'll become a habit for you.
Not only that, I mean, there's a hadith, roughly the meaning of the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever called the person bakhil, called him stingy, the one who hears his name, the Prophet's name, and doesn't say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So, he has been like stingy on himself for the reward, stingy on himself. He's not sending the peace and blessings upon the Prophet ﷺ. So this is another indication, and that's why a lot of scholars, they either believe you have to, or highly recommended, and you should never avoid it when you hear the Prophet ﷺ's name, to say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
I'm actually of that opinion that every time you hear it, you should say it. But just to make it easy on people, yes, there's another valid opinion as well, that if you hear it one time in a gathering, you do it, and so on. And another point I want to mention, what I noticed also among the English-speaking or other, I've noticed that when you see the Prophet ﷺ's name written in English, we tend to, in Arabic we write Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but we translated it in English. What I've seen is a lot of shortcuts, like this SAWS, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or so on, or AS, Prophet.
Or even now in Arabic, they're doing the letter Sad.
Yes.
To shorten it.
And this, according to our scholars, is not allowed. We should fully write the whole thing, because sometimes when we see the shortcut, sometimes we may not read it, because once it's written fully, then we'll actually pronounce it and say it. Whatever is written, you tend to read it, no? So we need to focus on that as well. I think it's one of the things that, among the English-speaking brothers, a lot of times is, when somebody does something for you, they say, supposed to say Jazakallah khair, right? And the brother's like, Jazak. So this is shortcuts. Jazak what? Or even say Jazakallah. May Allah reward you with what? Reward, it's not a reward and says, may Allah give you, or give this for you, but you have to mention what? Khair, right? We want khair, we don't want something else. So a lot of people are using shortcuts, not just for, salawat salam, but for many other things, or like, they write, instead of salam alaikum, they say S, big S, and then go down and stuff like that. I mean, this is just one of those things that we need to try to avoid.
Well, walaikum salam is a WS and things like that.
Yes.
So yeah. I mean, we should definitely avoid it, because apart from about sending the peace and blessing of the Prophet ﷺ, even the salam wa alaikum, the wa alaikum salam, these are acts of worship alone when you do these things, because you're doing this following the guidance, you're doing this to please Allah, you're doing this to greet a fellow Muslim. So we shouldn't really shortcut them to the extent where you're writing an S or a WS in theory. The very minimum that some scholars say is you can say salam. Very minimum.
I give our audience a practical tip for those who are using either Android or iOS. There is shortcuts in your keyboard you can do. I do it myself. You can, put like SAWS. Whenever you write it down, it will open up and you put it in shortcuts. It will recognize it as Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It will write it down for you.
SubhanAllah.
So you can do that. That's practical. So it's not like you're typing all of this, but at the same time you use the shortcut. Or I do double A, Assalamu alaikum. I put double A, it comes Assalamu alaikum already. Stuff like this. Or Insha'Allah, like you do some shortcuts for that too. So I mean, not to make it hard for yourselves, you can make those shortcuts in your keyboard, save it one time, we'll recognize it next time. So therefore, you are fulfilling what you need to be doing when it comes to these things. So we need to always look how we can better ourselves, or how we can do things properly, subhanAllah. So saying salawat and salam on the Prophet ﷺ is very important, and let's always make it a habit of that.
Okay, inshallah. On that point, we'll just go for our second break. Join us after this break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, for this last part of the show, we want to finish off with about another 3 tips we have. Yeah, basically we have 3 more tips.
Yes, we have. So
Or
the fifth,
signs,
yeah,
you
you could say. I mean, we don't want to say these are the 7 only. We're just talking about 7 that everybody can relate to. You can add your own, but these are 7 that everybody will relate
The
to.
good thing is they're actually signs,
Yeah.
but at the same time they're tips.
Yes.
You know, because
We
if
have
you
some
have
practical
them,
things.
if you have them, you feel alhamdulillah, at least have those 7. If you don't have them, you can take them as a tip
Yeah.
to start trying to have them or to attain them.
Yes, exactly. And it's not like something, oh, these are the 7 tips that the ulama recommend. No, this is something that we just compiled and we just looked at, just to see, basically like a litmus test for us. When we put these 7 things together to see where we stand, and if one of them is lacking, right, or so we can better ourselves in that regard, or if some of them are missing, then we need to reevaluate and so on. So let's go to the 5th one, which is loving what and whom he loved. So loving what things he practiced, what he loved, and whom he loved. This is important also, whom he loved. This includes acts of worship, such as fasting, Mondays and Thursdays, and so on. And these are so many other things. And also, who did he love? Of course, he loved his wives, of course, but he loved the Sahaba, right? He loved them a lot. I mean, that even he announced to some of them that they're from the Ashar Mubashirin, that they are the ones who are chosen by Allah to enter Jannah. They're promised Jannah already and before they even died. So there are some of those glad tidings that were given to Sahaba during his life. So we need to love those things. So of course, what else from the things that he used to do? Some of the small things like using siwak or things like this. Practice, some of those things that he loved, and of course his entire family he loved, and all the companions. And we know some narrations say how many companions are there that saw the Prophet ﷺ? Says 124,000, right? Some people say less. Some of the Sahaba saw the Prophet ﷺ only briefly, especially towards the end because they came in groups, accepted Islam. But if you talk about the Sahaba at Battle of Badr or Uhud, you have maybe 1,000 or so. But I mean, there's a lot, so we need to love all of them because the Prophet ﷺ loved them. So we need to, and this should be, like I said, out of all things, this should be a litmus test for us. Where do we stand? Do we love those of people that he loved, especially those that were promised Jannah while they were still alive? And this is to see, because some people may claim otherwise, right? Some people may not like those, so we need to ask ourselves, do we love them the way Prophet ﷺ did, and especially the way he chose them?
We have to remember that Allah says, "Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an." That Allah was pleased with them and they were pleased with Him. So this is Allah Himself is pleased with these companions.
Yes.
And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in an authentic hadith, "La tusibbu ashabi." Do not insult or revile my companions. So definitely, it's a part of proper Islamic belief that you have to respect the companions and you have to love them. And
especially those closest to him, right? Some of those people who accepted Islam first, such as Abu Bakr, loving him is a part of our religion. It's a must for us to love him, and he is also the first of the Khulafa. So loving him is very important for us. We cannot deny that, and Omar and others, and the list goes on and on and on. So we need to ask ourselves, do we love what he loved? From the things he used to do. There's also famous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ liked nice perfume. Okay? We should also emulate that. We should use the nice perfume, right? I mean, a lot of times, we see people that are not appropriately using or they're not using and so on. So we need to love those things, because Prophet ﷺ loved to be clean, of course, loved to take care of himself, his body, right? And we should also do the same thing. I mean, this is common sense, but we should encompass all of the things that he used to love and go with it, right? Go with the flow, like we say. So that's the fifth thing. The sixth thing is, and this is brings a lot of times, reflection for us, is remembering him and wishing to be with him. I know we did not live in the time of Prophet ﷺ, and I think if you ask most of the ummah, I would say, if what would be your number one desire or something, they will say, to see the Prophet ﷺ alive, right? To be with him in dunya, right? This would be the ultimate, no? I mean, so much so that some people even keep asking dua to Allah to see him in a dream, right? And this is something that we should, I know it's not realistic because he passed away, we are living a different time, but we should have that desire in our hearts.
So just you mentioned the dream, just a point of benefit there, that obviously we know that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever sees me in a dream has truly seen me, because the shaitan cannot come in my form.
Yes.
But obviously that means if anyone does have a dream, they need to then go into the seerah and read the Prophet ﷺ's description to establish if that really was a dream of the Prophet ﷺ.
And one of the tips is, if you remember somebody and you talk about a lot about that person, then you're thinking about them a lot. And the more you love, for example, Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the more you'll refer back to his life, which come back to the second point, which is reading about seerah and reading about his life. And one of the things for future that you need to be making is that you, because you're not going to meet him in this life, that you meet him in the hereafter, right? So asking Allah to give you what? Jannatul Firdaus, the highest level of Jannah, because that's what Prophet ﷺ is. And, and you want to be with him. You want to be those who are close to him.
Talk about being close to him, and going back to the second point as well, which is kind of connected to this point, is it reminds me of when a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he was asking about the Day of Judgment. The Prophet ﷺ said, only Allah knows exactly when it is. But he said to him, but what have you prepared for it?
Yes.
And he said, oh Allah, I have only prepared my love of Allah and my love of you. And then he said that he basically said that you will
go be with those whom you love.
With those whom you love.
Allah.
So this is also a very strong factor that why we should try to increase in this love, because you'll be with those who you love. And that's a general principle.
Yes.
So you don't want to be from those people on the Day of Judgment who loved all these footballers and movie stars to such an extreme level, and you didn't really focus on loving the Prophet ﷺ, and then on Yawm al-Qiyamah you'll be with these people rather than being with the prophets and the believers.
There was a famous singer popular, whatever, and this is back in North America, and brothers were telling me this. They were saying that this person was Muslim. He was on his deathbed, had few moments left, whatever, and they went to give him da'wah, to talk to him, to tell him, look, Allahu Alam, your hour is coming, your time is coming. Remind him to recite Shahada, right? Remind him to utter La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, so on and so forth. And then this person kept insisting, no, I want to listen to this famous song of this singer and so on. And he kept asking for it, and he kept asking for it. And the brothers kept implying, look, don't. So that this person died in such a state without uttering the Shahada. So, like you said, you're going to be with those whom you love, who have greatest influence in your life. And we have to put Prophet ﷺ in our life in such a way that we think about him all the time. Not in a sense to think about him in all the time and to go to the levels that are not allowed. Revering him in a way that associating him as a partner to Allah. No. Loving him as a prophet. Loving him the way he told us to love him. Okay? And of course, because you want to be with him, he's in Jannatul Firdaus. One rule that we should know about Jannah, if you make it to Jannah, but you're not in Jannatul Firdaus, you will not be able to go up and visit, right? But the people from above, they will visit you down. So in order to rectify the situation, aim for the highest level. Then you will be able to visit everybody, and you'll be with the prophets and shuhada and everybody else who's in the highest level. And the last point is, of course, and this is what we are doing inshallah today, is and joining others, encouraging others to learn about him and try and emulate him. And this is important because we cannot be selfish. Just because we have, inshallah, we have love for Prophet ﷺ, and we try in our best, to our best ability, to emulate him in all aspects of life, that we all of a sudden just stop talking about it or just keep it to ourselves. This is not allowed. We have to encourage each other to talk about him as much as we can, to emulate him in all aspects, and to teach others about it.
Inshallah. Well, Jazakallah khair for coming on and sharing that with us. And again, for the viewers, may Allah reward you for tuning in, and inshallah we can take this away and use this either as signs, if we have or not, or as tips to try and get more love for the Prophet ﷺ, inshallah. And until the same time, same place, inshallah, I leave you as always with the greetings of Islam, the greetings of peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.